Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain. This week's video is just going to be about something that's kind of a basic thing that we need to do for our tomatoes. Now, we talked about in the past how we set up our tomato trellising system for our indeterminants, which are the big guys, the guys who grow up, to be, well, they can be 7 feet, depending on how your soil fertility is and the variety of the tomato and that, but they tend to be uh, quite large. And we're going to train those guys to a central leader basic system. And that's why we did these guys basically on the string to ground. And then we've got it tied off on the purlin on top. And we've got all these guys all lined out. There's approximately 37 of the indeterminate type tomatoes here, mostly pace. We do have a couple of Moscoviches, which are slicers, and a couple of Brandywines, which are slicers. But basically everything else is a form of a pace tomato. But today what we're working on is the determinants. And these are the guys that they tend to grow faster, and they tend to not get as super tall, and they tend to also be earlier and can be pretty heavy producers in the early stages. So the determinants typically will probably get to be about 4 feet tall, roughly. And what we're doing is we're setting up a system, and we'll show you some pictures here as soon as I kind of get out of the way. But it's called a Florida weave or a basket weave. And the simple concept is basically between two stakes. Usually we're talking about a distance of about 4 to 5 feet. We have maybe 3 tomato plants, maybe 4. And those tomato plants are parallel to a T-post and another post. In this case, we're going to be using 1/2 inch, 5-foot fiberglass rods that we've put in the ground. Now, what happens then is you then take a string, and basically what you're doing is you're going alternating directions on one way, and then you turn around and come back and go the alternating direction the other way around the plants. So basically, if you think about it from the plant standpoint, you're actually kind of constraining the stem between two strings. And the key to this is getting the strings set up early. So we're going to start it at roughly, the plants are about 1 foot tall at this point, and they're starting to lean a little bit. We do get a little bit of breeze here in the tunnel, but it's perfect now at the stage to set these guys up for this weave. And then we come through, and as they grow, roughly about every 6 to 10 inches, somewhere in there, depending on what we're looking at, we'll put another layer of exactly the same thing, where we go in and out. We go down one way, and then we come back the other way and weave again, and it continues to keep the stem of the tomato plants basically hemmed in and held tight, so that it can't flop around in the breeze. So basically what you end up creating almost like is a wall of tomatoes. Um, so the idea here for this being inside the tunnel is, the advantage is A, it'll keep the tomato plants off the ground, keep the pathways clear, but we'll also get much better airflow. And that's what we're kind of concerned about, is fungal diseases and things of that nature. So that keeping that up also enables us to do a little bit of pruning if necessary. Although we're not going to train these guys specifically to a single leader, there may be a couple of branches off, as opposed to the indeterminate ones. The tall guys, we're going to train those to 1 leader only. All right, what you're seeing here is, this is a T-post we've put in. This is the first T-post at the head of the row. And as you look down here, you can see there's the white fiberglass rod. Those are 1/2 inch, 5-foot rods that have been pushed in the ground for a good foot. One of the things too is, this is our electric culture area. So we want to make sure that none of the stakes are affecting any of the electric culture wires that we put in, because you got to be careful that we don't end up disturbing that. But this row of 17 plants, what we did is we took and basically put a post about every 5 to 6 feet, a T-post. And so in between those, at roughly about every 3 or 4 plants, if you look at this one's 1, 2, 3 plants, we put the fiberglass rod. And then the next one is approximately 4 plants, but all the rest of them are spaced 3 plants apiece. So the fiberglass rod is not as sturdy as the T-post itself, but it'll still give support. So as we go down, we're gonna wrap around the plants one side. So we'll go basically start here and go in and then out and then in and turn around the fiberglass rod a couple times and then in and out. And then as we get back down to the backside, we're going to come back and do the exact thing, but in the opposite direction. So each plant then will basically have the baling twine around it on both sides to hold the plant in position. You can already see this guy right here has already got a lean going to it. And so that's why we're at just the optimum size right now. That, you know, if these guys get whipped around too much, we don't want any broken stems. So let me show you basically how we're going to tie it up and, you know, what it's going to kind of look like. So there's many different ways to tie these things off. You know, it's not a high-tech thing. Just what I'm going to try to do is just do a simple basic square knot. Okay, after I tied it out with a square knot, what I'm doing is I'm putting it off the T-post in the end. I'm putting it approximately 6 inches off the ground, and then I'll do, like I said, weave in between the plants. Okay, so what you see is it's tied off, and then we looped back around, and you can kind of see now that the individual plants are being held in between the crossing over of the string. And see, even the plant that was kind of leaning over now is standing up straight. And the whole idea is it goes in and out like that all the way down the entire row. And as long as we keep up on this, come in and check it, you know, during how things are growing, we'll probably end up putting on a new level probably about once every week, depending on how fast these guys grow. So the whole concept is basically in and out, and the tightness of the twine keeps the plant stable. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. I've seen people use, particularly if they've got a long line of things, use like a piece of like PVC pipe. So basically, with using like a piece of PVC pipe as a wand, what you can do is run the string through the pipe, tie it off to your end post over there as an example, and then use the wand as a guide to go in between the plants. So basically it would speed up the process dramatically. In this case, though, we only had 17 plants, so it really wasn't worth doing. Lots of times too, folks use specific twine. Like you can get some twine that is set specifically for tomatoes. It's a pretty strong nylon twine, but it tends to be a lot less heavy than, say, baling twine. So you can actually get a spool of it. And in some cases, I've seen videos, as an example, I went to YouTube University on this, is where people actually can buy that twine in a box. It can hook on your belt. So at the same time you're using the wand, it's basically spooling out of the box as you walk along the row. So there are ways to make this go really fast. I find that the Florida weave is better than using tomato cages. Tomato cages tend to get a bit heavy, and they tend to start leaning. So you end up having to stake those guys up anyway. And this is a lot less expensive. When we get finished with a season, it's just basically cutting the twine down and then cutting the plants off, and you can kind of roll it up almost. So it kind of works out a lot easier, and then it's really simple to, you know, remove the stakes and stuff. So that's kind of the system I'm using on the determinants. And as we already talked about, the big row of the indeterminants. And that is the whole thing. It's not very complicated. So the other thing that I've done too in here is I've also planted marigolds, those little French marigolds. I started a whole row of these guys um, in the center row, and then I've basically been transplanting as we go. Well, they're kind of at the stage where they're putting out their first set of true leaves, so I'm just putting them in between every single plant. So on this particular set of tomatoes, it'll only be on the inside of the row, but actually over here on the indeterminates, I'm going to end up putting it on both sides. So the foot of the tomato plants will have marigolds around it, and it'll kind of maybe help a little bit with giving some color in here, but at the same time might do a little bit towards helping the tomato plants with a few bugs and stuff. So folks, it wasn't too complicated. I apologize for my voice today. It's a little bit off. I don't know, a lot of pollen and stuff in the air. It's kind of been bugging me today. So that's the system. Pretty simple. Doesn't cost much. The stakes and stuff were all stuff I had on the farm. So I suppose if you had to go out and buy them, you know, you'd have an investment 1 year. And then after that, it's just basically twine. And simple process. Just want to thank you guys for watching today. And as always, stay safe out there, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.